The first udar came from beneath the yacht. Then came another. The wooden hull lifted out of the Pacific and began breaking apart. On June 15th, 1972, the Robertson family was sailing toward the Marquesas Islands aboard their 43-foot schooner, Lucette. They had already crossed oceans together. The yacht was their home. Then 3 killer whales appeared beside it. At first, the family watched in disbelief, but one whale struck the hull with terrifying force. Water rushed inside. Dougal Robertson understood immediately. Lucette was going down. There was no time to save their belongings, no time to send a distress call. The family threw food, water, and emergency supplies into a small life raft and dinghy. Less than a minute later, their yacht disappeared beneath the waves. 6 people were left floating hundreds of miles from land. And as the damaged raft began losing air, they realized the whales had only started the disaster. The ocean became silent after Lucette disappeared, but the family had no time to grieve. 6 people were now divided between a leaking inflatable raft and a 9-foot dinghy barely large enough to hold them. Their supplies looked frighteningly small. 3 days of emergency food, about 10 days of water, no radio, no engine, and no ship knew they were missing. Dougal made the first rule immediately. Nothing would be wasted. Every biscuit, every orange, every mouthful of water had to be measured. But another problem was already growing. The raft was losing air. They pumped it again and again, while the dinghy pulled both boats across the open Pacific. Then Dougal studied the wind and currents. Waiting for rescue could kill them. So he chose a direction and announced a plan. They would sail toward the rain belt and search for water. It was their only chance. But before they could reach it, the ocean placed a ship directly in their path. The ship appeared exactly when they needed it most. For 6 days, the Robertsons had searched an empty horizon. Then a dark shape rose from the sea. A real vessel. A real chance. They fired flares, waved cloth, and shouted until their throats burned. For a moment, it seemed impossible that the crew could miss them. But the ship kept moving. It passed close enough to see, and still vanished beyond the horizon. That moment changed everything. Waiting was no longer a plan. Dougal told the others they had to stop thinking like castaways waiting to be found. From now on, they would ration, repair, navigate, and fight their own way toward land. But the ocean was already taking its next payment. Their water was nearly gone. The sun burned their skin, and the rain belt they were chasing remained days away. Then, on the 10th day, the wind died. The sea became flat. They had reached the place where rain should save them. But not a single drop fell. The rain came 3 days late. By then, every empty container felt like a countdown. Their lips were cracked. Their tongues had begun to swell. Then, without warning, the sky opened. Rain hammered the raft and dinghy. The family laughed, cried, and held up every tin, cup, and piece of canvas they could find. For the first time since Lucette sank, they had more water than fear. But the ocean never gave without taking something back. During the storm, the rope connecting the dinghy to the life raft came loose. The small boat began drifting away. Without it, they would lose their sail, their supplies, and their only way to control their direction. Dougal had seconds to choose: stay with his family, or enter the dark water and swim after it. He jumped. The waves pushed the dinghy farther away as he fought toward it. Behind him, the raft was already disappearing in the rain. And somewhere beneath the surface, sharks were moving through the same water. The first turtle changed everything. Until then, hunger had been an empty pain they could only endure. Then a dark shell surfaced beside the raft. Dougal grabbed it before it could dive. For the first time in days, the family had real food. They drank the blood, cut the meat into careful portions, and dried what they could beneath the sun. Nothing was wasted. Not the fat, not the skin, not even the shell. But one meal could not save 6 people. The ocean demanded that they become hunters. Flying fish landed inside the dinghy at night. They caught dorado when luck allowed. Every bite bought them another day. Then the life raft began failing faster. Air escaped from new seams. Water entered from below. They pumped, patched, and bailed without stopping. But by the 16th day, the raft could no longer carry them. 6 survivors now faced an impossible choice: abandon the only shelter they had and squeeze into a dinghy built for 3. The raft was gone. Now 6 people had to survive inside a dinghy built for 3. There was no room to lie down, no dry place to sleep. Every movement threatened to tip the boat. They took turns sitting on the narrow dry section while the others crouched in cold seawater. Then the storms returned. Waves crashed over the sides, soaking their clothes until the fabric began to rot from their bodies. And during one violent night, the containers holding their precious rainwater overturned. 5 days of drinking water vanished into the bottom of the boat. For the first time, even Dougal had no answer. So the 6 made 3 promises. They would keep watching for ships. They would never stop moving toward land. And no matter how desperate hunger became, they would never eat one another. But promises were easy while everyone was still alive. The real test would come when one of them became too weak to rise. By the 4th week, survival no longer looked heroic. It looked like 6 people packed into a boat too small to hold them. Their clothes had rotted away. Salt sores covered their skin. Every sip had to be earned. When rainwater became too dirty to drink, Lynn found another way to keep their bodies alive. The method was desperate, but desperation had become routine. Dougal kept calculating distance. Douglas rowed when he had strength. Robin repaired gear and tried to keep the twins calm. Then Douglas finally broke. He told his father he could not continue. Dougal answered with the only thing he had left. Not food, not water, a reason. He told his son the others needed him alive. So Douglas lifted the oar again. By day 37, land was still hundreds of miles away. Their food was almost gone. One child's cough was getting worse. They began planning shifts to row through the final distance. Then Dougal looked up and saw something moving on the horizon. The shape on the horizon did not disappear. It grew larger. A fishing vessel was coming straight toward them. After 38 days at sea, the 6 survivors had one final chance to be seen. Dougal fired their last flare. For several terrifying seconds, nothing changed. Then the ship turned. The Japanese trawler Tokomaru slowed beside the dinghy. The crew stared down at 6 people who looked barely alive. One by one, they were pulled aboard. The twins first. Then Lynn, Robin, Douglas, and finally Dougal. Only after reaching the deck did they understand it was over. No more rationing, no more storms, no more waking inside a boat built for 3. All 6 had survived. The ocean had taken their yacht, their strength, and nearly their lives, but it had failed to separate them. 38 days earlier, they had watched their home sink beneath the Pacific. Now they watched their tiny dinghy drift away, the boat that should never have carried them so far.